So let's go to the bottom. That will be the plan of what we want to do today. And before we start, that right here, that's what we want to talk about. I'll tell you that I personally get a certain change in the attitude. I'll tell you how it happened and what that means for you guys. So what happened is that I'm working on a certain software for lawyers. I think I showed you that software. That doesn't really matter what it is, a web-based software, and good lawyers, by the way, public defenders, they think of themselves as heroes. So what happened is that I mentioned, look, everybody is thinking about ChatGPT, shouldn't we? Now that immediately became different. First of all, we have a couple lawyers on the team, and we started talking. Now I chat to GPT all the time because, I talk about this, but I had to really open in a new tab here. I had to also do something. So it is here. Wow, what's going on? Because I'm on another computer usually, but that should be working. Well, it's a bit strange, but that doesn't really matter. What does matter is that the lawyer said, oh, great use for the ChatGPT. I was in court, he said, and there was a question is, can a police stop a person because his tinted window doesn't show him something? I'm not sure about the exact question, but it was something like that. And the lawyer added that nobody, not the judge and not the other lawyers in the courtroom, knew the law. So immediately one of our team members obviously talks to this ChatGPT all the time, types and gets the answer. And now the lawyer says, but he is not familiar with the particulars of my case. Maybe, yes, that's the law, but in my case, it might be different. That leads me to think, but we need to familiarize ChatGPT with your case. Then you will not say this. Okay, let's go back. And now my thinking changes because now I'm an implementer. Before, I'll tell you the dirty secret of a trainer. You just wave your hands and you say, oh, that's easy. That's what you do. That's the instruction. And you figure it out. And if you need to fine tune, then you will fine tune. That's what you will say. But now I'm talking to another guy, a client of mine, and he runs a delivery business. So I tell him that, ChatGPT, oh yeah, he says, I heard about this, even though he's usually in the truck doing delivery. But that is a popularity, and he immediately gets and says, yes. So you guys can do a chatbot that's smart and that knows about a particular delivery. And all of my deliveries, well, not yet, but that's what I'm saying. You, the lawyer, you will familiarize, or rather, we will familiarize your agent with exact circumstances of your case, and it will be another window probably in your application. Well, now you see how my attitude changes. I'm very interested, practically interested. I don't want to do the wrong thing. Now, in addition, I get things like that. I get this request. And they are saying, hey, our client wants this. And they want Bing and ChatSonic and JasperChat and all of that. So what do you know about this? Well, obviously he got that list from somewhere, like competitors. That's one thing that happened. And another thing that happened is I just got another email here, and he asks, we want generative AI and we want responsive AI. And I know that they really want to do the same thing. Take your pet project, fine tune the model, and make sure it works, and make sure you can put it in production. Well, that's becoming serious. So that's what I'm dealing with. And I'm, by the way, there is a lot of popularity. Yes, that doesn't stop. Let's check on trends, right? And let's talk about ChatGPT, which is pretty much the same as OpenAI. Yes, it realizes as the same thing. So popularity, you know, oh, because I didn't spell it right. Chat GPT. Now it recognizes that's a search term and it knows it's the subject. So like that, right? And yesterday we were in the quantum computing. So we said, well, quantum computing is unjustly not getting it whole popularity, but Taylor Swift is. So is it like this maybe? I hope it will correct me if I'm the one. So if you compare these two, ChatGPT is more. Wow. Okay, that's the kind of thing that we're dealing with. And the latest news were that there were letters, warnings, but I don't take them seriously now. First of all, they don't ask me. That's very important. But I don't think these letters are serious because they are coming from some random people. Okay, they might be popular or they might be professors at university, but and their suggestions are unbelievable. They don't beat ChatGPT because they suggest, oh, let's stop it for 6 months. 6 months. So what's the meaning of that is not clear. Others say no. Stopping for 6 months is not enough. You should completely shut it down. This is all hype. Just this morning, my wife sent me, Italy stopped ChatGPT. Look inside. The title is usually what attracts the clicks. So the title is not correct usually, and it wasn't. Italy didn't stop it. Instead, it just asked ChatGPT to talk about how they will deal with privacy issues. So ignore that. However, these sources, and you can always look and find, are very correct people. These are that Sam Altman is the one who builds it, and he talks very honestly about the whole story because it's much more open than we thought. It is also much more open source. They're thinking even about open sourcing ChatGPT 4. So we'll talk again why it is important and what is what. What is the model? What is the company? Now, the only problem with these podcasts is they're all very long. Like, who would listen to 2 hours and 23 minutes? That I will leave to you. I had to, so I listened to all of that. I did. And let's put things straight. First of all, there is a company. There are two companies essential for us. One is called OpenAI, and the other one is called Hugging Face. Now, OpenAI gives us the product, the specific model, and we'll be back to this model. The Hugging Face gives you the tools, and unfortunately, they don't jive together. So Hugging Face shows you how you take the GPT-2 model and improve it, work with it, complete control. You get complete control. As far as GPT-3, it's not in the open. As far as we should really be talking about GPT-4, so that's not in the open at all. We just saw that it's a trial basis and it is only giving you 25 messages every 3 hours. Now, if I logged in correctly, I have a paid account, so plus, okay, I did log in correctly. I might have a little bit more speed, but not that much. It's only $20 a month. So that's a ready-made product that you can use, and you immediately think, okay, if I can fine-tune that, how nice. If I could Just like Alexa, where's my coffee? And it knows, but it's only programmed by keywords. Now this knows about your circumstances, and it also remembers what you were saying before. Let's try. What was I saying? Well, in this context, and it remembers that. Well, it says that, but can you code? Certainly. And that's one of the things that people do, coding. Some people already report that they solved the complete problem, a complete product with the help of GPT, not writing even one line. But on the average, the stats are like this. They used to be 30% of the code that was written by ChatGPT, of course, among those people who use it. And now it is 60. So they got to using 60% of the code. And will that replace a programmer is an open question. Yes, Lawrence, it has no memory, but it knows within this conversation. So I want to say something. Let's talk about Napoleon. There will be Napoleon, yeah, like this. Okay, so I can ask them something that relates to what we were speaking. For example, we haven't discussed. That's what I was looking for. It remembers that it gave me information, but we have not spoken about this. In that sense, it does have memory. So I don't want that to be only about ChatGPT, but I do want to emphasize this. ChatGPT is trained on a huge amount of data that you can reproduce. Then it's using what's called human in the loop, or really it's called HL. If I can remember HLRF. No. FR. No. But I don't remember what it's called. Something like additional training with the help of humans. And that additional training with the help of humans goes back into the model. So even though there are open source alternatives, we'll be looking at that today, but these open source alternatives are not additionally trained. Now, the Sam Altman explains how it was. It was not using the public. The public is not reliable. It was using specific hired people, GPT trainers, who were making it more and more attuned. They did make a distinction between technically what the model is capable of and practically how does it work. Is it working as the humans would want it to work? There is a special term for that. It's called alignment. So the model may be precise. Technically, it does what people want it to. Human in the loop. Thank you very much, Lindsay. That's what it is. I'm not sure if it is exactly. There is one more word, human in the loop, yes, but there's also where you tell, no, that was bad. That's called reward and punishment. So you give it reward and punishment for the right answer. So there is a R there. But we know what we're talking. We all agree it's a human in a loop, estimated maybe 1,000 of people who worked on it a few months. That's the kind of additional that goes into the model now. That's very important. That's how they stop it from hallucinating. You know, the models are famously known for telling strange thing about yourself, for example, like tell me how good a physicist I am, and it will start. But this one may not start. Okay, physicists, as I said that. It's generic. It doesn't hallucinate anymore because it was corrected. Now GPT-3, and you can get to GPT-3 here at the top, start the new conversation and change to GPT-3 the default. I think it still hallucinates, and you tell her about who invented America. Okay, here today, and it will continue talking about this. But let's go back. So they are even thinking about outsourcing GPT-4, and that means the model with the human corrections. Complete thing, but it's not here yet. GPT-3 is not here yet. So you can't really fine tune it. Now, you can do something. What you can do is, this is how you fine tune it. Click in there. That's their own documentation. But it's a little bit deceptive. It's not real fine-tuning. What is fine-tuning? That is, yes, it is customizing the model, but usual definition of fine-tuning is that you download the real model. And that's why it will take so much hardware to really do it. And after you download the real model, you add a few layers with additional data. And now you essentially get the same model, but trained further. That's why it's called fine tuning. Well, the way OpenAI allows you to fine tune is just add a few prompts. Prompt engineering, yes? No, it's not. You're asking fine tuning. Is that another way of saying prompt engineering? So the two different things here are fine tuning as it was understood and still understood really in the society of people who do this, is that I get the real model. And the real model is mine. I can do anything I want to it. Now I add additional data, and it is the same model with the same capabilities. It can talk, but now it knows a bit more. That is not what prompt engineering is. Prompt engineering is only fine-tune it within the limits that OpenAI allows you to. And what does OpenAI allow you? Well, right here, it says that's how you install it, but you add only a few prompts. In other words, you imitate this. Given that I love flowers, and given that I like specifically roses and something else, given that, what should I buy today? That it knows, because you formulated a longer question. Now here, if you follow this instruction, you're allowed to give it, given that 1,000 times. You give a long introduction to your question. You don't have to type it every time. You could probably copy paste it, but with this training, you add that additional knowledge. That's not really knowledge. It's not really training anything. And that is the difference between prompt engineering. And since GPT is so popular and prompt engineering is so popular, now there are already professions. That's all was required. Let's go to Indeed. Prompt engineer. It knows. And how many prompt engineers in the United States are needed? Almost 4,000. Well, how many, for comparison, how many quantum computing jobs are out there? 1,000. So prompt engineering is popular. Because of that, many people think that fine-tuning and prompt engineering are the same thing, but I think you agree it's not, and somebody said thank you that it is clear now. Okay, let's go back to what we really want to cover. So these are the good sources of information, I would say, and that was the announcement from Phil Schmidt. Now, Phil Schmidt is a great guy that I admire. So, Phil, no, blog. We need his blog. Right, sorry, not failures, but Hugging Face. So he publishes news that is out of there. Okay, I cannot show. Maybe that's okay, but instead, that is his announcement. And he tells us that a certain company called Together released a model that would be an alternative to ChatGPT. So that is very important if it's true, because if you get ChatGPT, then perhaps they will shut it down. Perhaps there will be a regulation. Now, when I'm talking to friends, I say just ignore that. But that's a good thing to say to them. But if you're building a system, if I'm putting this legal system, if I'm adding it to the delivery guys, then it should always work. Maybe not so well when they shut down the ChatGPT, which probably they won't. Remember, it took the world by storm. The major investors, Microsoft and others, are big enough. So it's not easy to shut them down. But what it is only giving you 25 messages in 3 hours. That's very serious. So that's not what you mentioned in the chat with the friends. But if you're saying, guys, we're a startup, we're okay, Caseify. Where is it? Caseify. Yeah, Caseify.com. Hey, what are you doing? Hey, okay, still broken. Shows the wrong stuff. But if you're proposing it to the management of a startup, they will say, but it always works or what? And so you need at least a backup. That's why we're very interested, but we're interested in a different way. It's not sensational alternative, because I think that's what for Phil Schmidt it is. He is part of Hugging Face. He wouldn't be affected if ChatGPT is shut down, but I personally would. So we need this now, we understand, because of the backup at least. Will it be as practical as ChatGPT? That we're going to see today. So this is the company called Together. We're going here. And they announced the Open Chat Kit. And there's a nice, powerful open source, but notice it is a workbench for researchers. We are releasing a set of tools and processes for ongoing improvement with community contribution. So we understand, yes, we released on March 10th, we released an open source tool, but is it as polished and as performing as some Altmans? Of course, no, right? It hasn't been trained by thousands of people after that. It is not being pounded by the humanity all the time. And they, of course, keep recording their architecture. It appears that they are quite certain about the scalability and size. They don't even give any details, but it must be okay big. Now, this one is just another open source tool where it's great, but in comparison with ChatGPT, it's weak. Nevertheless, what if I need it? I need it as a backup for delivery services. Okay, let's look at it. Let's click here. That's where it is. So we'll be back to this to investigate it. But he says there is also a demo. So let us open a demo. And let's compare what we get. This is a demo. Thank you. Well, that's the first time that I open it from this computer. That's why I get. Okay. So what this is a complete demo. It works. So, okay, it says explain. Explain what AI is. Ellie is like I'm 5. Like I'm 5. Okay. As to a child. Okay, it can do that. We see that. There is no nicety like stop talking already, but it's okay. Well, much more interesting. Can you code? Well, okay. Using Java, connect to SQL Server and get metadata. So for that, it needs to know about SQL Server, about metadata, and about Java. No. Now I'm saying I want it in Python, but I'm relying on it remembering what was before. It remembers. So in that sense, it's comparable to ChatGPT. By the way, if you go to Bard, and Bard, you just do this, and ask Bard if you code. Just yesterday it says, no, I cannot code. Well, let us ask it the same question. Well, I have a reason to go through all of that. Where was my question? I want to copy paste the question. That's the question. Same question that I asked the Open Chat Kit. Now I'm asking Bard. Well, I'm certain millions of people are doing this all the time. That's wonderful. They probably opened that part of Bard because just the last time I spoke, it didn't want to code. Nevertheless, what I want is go back to ChatGPT, and we already understand that ChatGPT here is probably the best. Runs very well, but we're interested in this open model. So it allows you this, that's a demo. It also comes with a card as a cold model card. So this, you can read about this. You can run it here. This doesn't work all that well. You see, I clicked on generate something, and I'm not sure if it will ever come back. It never came back to me. So you can read about it here. You can try it here. Where was it? Here, right? Because it's faster. But in that place where you read about it, you also see the limitations. So we already know the limitations, that it's way less than perfect. It doesn't have the human loop, so it doesn't include that. It can be very wild. That's in the end, they say this. Misuse and malicious code. But there is also what it can do wrong. Self-deployment of models may have bad effect. You may get very wrong information, weaknesses. It still may hallucinate. The OpenAI fixed the hallucination problem in ChatGPT-4 to a very large extent. This is very raw compared to ChatGPT. And that's the most important. I think that what I wanted to show you is the comparison. So my practical answer today is play with ChatGPT, use it, try to fine tune it. That's all you can get. Remember the limitations. So here's ChatGPT 3.5. It doesn't have the limitations. This is ChatGPT 4. And it does have the limitations, so let's remove that. It talks about the limitations. This is a substitute for that. An open source model, which is much, much weaker than. You need a new term for chatbot hallucinations. You do, because that term is very unclear, but it is accepted by now. So unfortunately, yes, it is, but it is here. And finally, the conclusion is not kind of not a perfect world. The best model is ChatGPT 4, but it comes with severe limitations. So use it for experimentation. Better, more reliable, so to say, but not as good of quality, is 3.5. But even that, you cannot really train it. What they call training or fine-tuning is engineering, is prompt engineering of a bigger size. Now, are there open source replacements? Yes, there is one, but it's much weaker than the 3.5 and then 4. Now, if you're just experimenting, anything goes. But if you're a practical worker who wants to include it right away into his or her product, then you will think not twice, but thrice about which model you are going to use. Okay, I hope that helps. And we already looked at a few things. It was, we looked at fine tuning according to OpenAI. This is fine tuning of the previous model, ChatGPT. Now that goes the normal way. In other words, that, and I shouldn't be just talking, but should be showing, that downloads ChatGPT 2. After it downloads ChatGPT 2, now it says 3, but it's really 2 here. After it does this, it works in the regular fine tuning. You create a model with OpenAI, but still using, I believe, obviously I didn't completely check it, but you download the complete model, which has been open sourced. They give you the script of how to do it, but you can also do it in another lab here with here we're in the lab. I'll show you what else you can do. Okay, here you can just do generic fine-tuning or the ChatGPT according to them, or the ChatGPT 2, and that's real but weak, or fine-tuning with a Hugging Face. So there are many options, none of them is perfect. Now, talking here about philosophy, just maybe 1 minute about philosophy is that these people, they feel all powerful, and they think that maybe there is another point of view. Maybe we're all here in the San Francisco bubble, as they call it, and we just tremendously biased. And I would say, yes, you are, guys, but you don't know it. I'll give you 2 examples. Unfortunately, there is a big war in Europe, Russia against Ukraine, and its helpers, and there is a threat of nuclear war. So that will be completely outside of this point of view, that AI is maybe going to kill us all, or maybe it's going to improve our life. They talk about that it will bring tremendous prosperity to the humanity, and they talk about guaranteed income as the policy, and they sponsor the study, but not a word about the results of the study. What will be if everybody is out of work and is given the money from maybe ChatGPT somehow? Would that result in a paradise, or just the opposite? Will there be constant wars nonstop? That is a different point of view. And then let's go a little bit further into philosophy. Let's say take Buddhism. So obviously, Buddhists will tell you that all of that, all of what we're discussing here is samsara. It only seems so, that there is no real essence, no vastness, no real reality. That's not what you were born for. Okay. And yes, samsara, which is this thing in reality, is only deceiving you some more with some interesting toys. In other words, that point of view, that philosophical, let's say, and I only brought one, there are more. I just don't want to get into politics, but there are multiple points of views which might be true. And that is not included in the philosophy of the Silicon Valley bubble. Okay, so that's what I wanted to cover. So let's go again. So Martin came later. We'll look at the questions that there were. Let's go again about what we covered. We said that there is a tremendous activity. Even I feel it with the training requests, that there are movements now, maybe a month old, but from the people who were against AI maybe for 20 years. And I personally think that not worth discussing, but my wife would press me into discussing because to her it's important. Then we talked about that that's the real source of information, even though it takes 2.5 hours to listen to. And now we looked at the alternatives. We see how powerful this ChatGPT is. Has it achieved consciousness is a discussion here. They discussed this, of course, with all the ramifications of what is consciousness and will it lie if you ask it that did you achieve consciousness? That's all here. And then if that's such a powerful model and it's really thinking, or it can fake thinking very well, then let's look practically. And practically, it might shut you out. So build a product on that? Well, maybe no. Instead, what you can build is maybe have a something to fall back. So you build your product on that. But if it doesn't work, then you take an open source module, talk about the gradient performance, and that shows you how you can do it with the real data. But we already saw it's not perfect. So that is the demo of that on Hugging Face. And then we discuss this now. Martin says he arrived late. LLAMA. LLMA is, I think, one of the large data models, so large text models. Let's look real quick. I remember, I think it's Facebook. No, that's not. Well, let's try to correct it. We won't work too much on that, but we'll just say large language model. Yes. Yeah, it is from Facebook, and that's the announcement. But I feel that it is more an announcement to be in marketing. Facebook, yes, it is strong there, but it's working on practical things that would apply, and they released this paper. But Facebook, unfortunately, is known for dumping things that are open source but not supporting them. One good example is their alternative to Hive. Now we're talking. Somebody says try searching using Bing.com. Yes, I will have to say that I will not do it now because I don't usually play with it. I would need the fix that everything should be working for the demo. But Bing initially played the marketing game that look, we are better than Google, and now our search is conversational, whereas Google is one shot. So Google fix it. They already almost fixed it. You come to Google, you come to their, we looked at it, and it is Murad, right? And it's improving every day. It's changing something. So no, I didn't try Bing, but it is essentially ChatGPT with some adjustments made for Microsoft. So it is interesting to hear how these guys, Sam Altman, talks very highly about Microsoft. It was fashionable to bash the company, but now he talks about how great it is. It's very different. It's organized, and how they worked on using ChatGPT inside of Bing, and how they have Bing GPT. So there is great promise there, but so far in here, I'm concentrating on practical what you can do, and I didn't even run any lab. I'm sure I will in the next ones. So that was my contribution, and Stanford released Access. Where is, let's look. Okay, that is good, and this conversation is saved. I'll look at it, but again, it is no comparison to a huge company like OpenAI and the quality of their model and the testing that goes into this. And their market cap was 40 billion, the last we saw. So from then on, it will become a conversation like we have right now. It is continuous improvement on the this side. Now, practically for us, I don't want to just discuss it like this, but I want to give you practical physical alternative. What you can do if you are in a company or a startup that wants to use ChatGPT. Now your thinking completely changes because it should work, it should be available, even in Italy. And what if they shut it down? That's how you begin thinking. So right now, I'm not going into different conversations specifically. Well, for that, we have a journalist and they talk about them. So sorry that I'm not going that way. But that, I think, hopefully was practical. And what I'm mentioning here is, I believe, the most practical things that you personally can do for money, for profit, and for advancing your software in whatever project you work. Okay, if there are more questions, let's look at them. But specific questions, the answer to them changes all the time. And between different models, not only ChatGPT itself here gives you an option to regenerate the answer and come up with another answer. But each model also will give you a different answer. So it's an area that I don't go into. But if I open this, who was the father of AI, and put it here, what I'm interested in is let it generate, because it never hesitates to do this. And you hear John McCarthy's definition of machine learning and AI, and you hear it many times quoted by different people. His major definition is that the computers will work by learning and not by you programming that. It was about in what, 55, right? But regenerate, that's what I'm interested. Let's see if it gets you the same answer. By the way, it already found something to talk about. So he mentions more names. I'm only interested. That's very long. Say it shorter. That is the power of this model, is that it remembers what you mean. What do you mean by it? Okay. That's a great question. I need to quickly deploy a $1 billion model for this, this, and this. What would you recommend? So this is a private question, I see. But whatever question, so I'm not going to do it here since it's private, but guys, type it into ChatGPT. It won't give you the right answer right away, but keep talking and that will help you. Maybe there is an answer right away, or maybe you will polish your thinking and then you will be answering more. So yeah, I'll answer that question. So you see, you're saying thank you and goodbye. Or I'm saying goodbye and thank you because we have exhausted. Usually we have something else to talk, but I think somehow here we were talking about specific things and covered all of them. So I think next week we're skipping. You will get an announcement whether we get next week, but in any case, you will always get an invitation and you will always get a summary and a visual. You will get a recording. So thank you very much, everybody. I really enjoy the questions. And okay, I'm really thankful for your participation. And especially today, the whole purpose is to be alive and well and talk to each other. So that was Great. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, and have a great weekend and an awesome next week. I'll stop sharing now. Okay, I'm here for a little while. All right. Thank you very much. And goodbye, everybody.